Good morning. Thank you all for showing up on an early Friday morning. I'll make sure I can get this to work. Great. So I'm going to talk to you. I'm the executive director of North Pole Studio, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about North Pole Studio. Nope. Hold on a second. See, I'm glad I'm going first so you can see what not to do. All right, so I'm going to share with you about North Pole Studio, how we started. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the national context of studios like ours and the history of how studios like ours started. And then you'll get to hear from Ocean, who is an artist at North Pole, and she'll share about her creative practice. So North Pole Studio, our mission is to support careers in the arts, and we exist to increase opportunities for artists with autism and intellectual and developmental disabilities. That's a great mission. So in shorter, we support careers in the arts for artists with autism and intellectual and developmental disabilities. And what that looks like is we have a professional studio program, an exhibiting artist program, and we have classes and workshops. Our professional studio program is our core program, and that is for artists who are very serious about their practice and who are pursuing professional careers. We have a beautiful studio space that we moved into in April in the Pearl District, and that space is stocked with art supplies, and artists who are members of the program come in. It's like a gym membership. You come in, you work in the studio, and there's support for you. And then the really important second side of that is we have a team who support artists in getting opportunities to exhibit, sell, get commissions, get their work licensed, so earning income and visibility from their work. And that program now has 33 artists in it, and all of those artists are very different practices, very different aesthetic interests, styles. You'll get to hear one artist practice today, but we have very, very different practices, which is fun for us to help find ways to connect all of these artists to different opportunities to earn income and exhibit and sell their work. And that core program is an application process. So folks who are interested do have to apply. It's a portfolio review and then be accepted. The exhibiting artist program are for artists who make work in their home spaces and don't make work in our studios for whatever reason. It could be medical, social anxieties, but they make work at their home studio, and we still provide that support in getting their work out into the world, exhibition opportunities and things like that. And then our classes and workshops are a different branch. Those are our professional studio artists absolutely can take those classes. If it's a medium that they want to learn about, a new process or practice, they can. But that arm of our programming really is our broad net of services. So those classes are available for anyone 16 and up to come and take a class. We have one-day workshops, and we have 8 to 10 week long courses as well. The studio program, our main goals are meaningful employment for folks, visibility and representation, and community engagement. As you all are creatives, you know the importance that creating can, more than just having a beautiful object, that the act of creating and creating in community is so vital. And for this population of artists with autism and intellectual and developmental disabilities, isolation is a huge challenge. So creating in community, also a lot of challenges around feeling seen. And so artwork is a really great way to share your voice, to bring visibility to your practice, and to empower you. And last year alone, we had 25 artists in our professional studio program, and collectively $65,000 in earned income was sold throughout the year of 2024, we're on track to sell around $76,000 in art this year. So it is a meaningful, we're making money. People are selling their work, and genuinely, we have artists who are doing very well. An interesting thing about a lot of folks who have autism or who have developmental disabilities, if they're reliant on SSI, there are income caps. So we're running into this interesting problem of artists earning too much money and being at risk of losing their disability benefits. So it's an interesting and unique problem to have. We're like, yay, lots of money. how do we help you make sure you don't lose your health care? So that's just a unique challenge of our artists. I wanted to tell you about our origin story, how we were started. North Pole was founded in 2020. What a year to start a new thing, anything. The co-founders had been dreaming this up for years to come, but wanted to launch it at the beginning of 2020, and of course the pandemic hit. And so that first year was pivoted to online classes until it was safe to actually be together. But the way North Pole started is our founding artist, Davis Wolford, here is on the top. And Davis is an autistic artist who is graduating from high school. And he went to Victory Academy, and they have a program for everyone graduating to help them explore opportunities for what's next after graduation. And he wanted to be a professional artist. That was his goal in life. And his mom, Sarah Mensa, over here, his transition specialist, Sula Wilson, and his art teacher, Mary Ellen Anderson, came together and were like, what does it look like for someone like Davis, who's autistic, to have a career as a professional artist? What does he need to be successful? And what does someone like him need, in order to, all of the different elements for them to be able to pursue that career? So they came together and founded North Pole, and at that time, it was an all-volunteer-run organization, and with the goal of thinking, Davis and some of his friends as they graduate, maybe this can be a great opportunity for them. And that first year, through virtual programming, served about 20 artists, and again, all volunteer-run. Sarah wrote a personal check, so very small budget that year, and the organization has grown so much that here we are in, here we are in 2025. We're on track to serve close to 600 artists this year. Yeah. And we went from an all-volunteer-run organization. We have a staff of 12 now. And we went from a very small, almost no budget, to we're at 1.2 million annual operating budget this year. So huge growth in 5 years. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's huge. It's exciting. And I think there's a lot to be said for people who are like, why? How did it grow? Why did it grow so much? I mean, there's so many. This is obviously a very needed program. There's been so many people who, once this started, North Pole has had a wait list from the beginning of people wanting to join the program, and we've been limited by size and capacity of how many people we can serve. So I've been slowly trying to grow that, and our move to a larger studio this year allowed us to really expand how many people we can serve. I also wanted to mention North Pole's name. People are always like, North Pole, how did that come about? And Davis, his mom shared this story with me that as a child was always really, really interested in the Rudolph story, the old stop-motion animation Rudolph story and the Misfit toys. And if you think about it, Rudolph was different, and his difference made him a hero. He saved the day. And the North Pole was a space for people who are different where they can be seen as heroes. And North Pole Studio is a space where people can see their differences as a superpower, as a hero, as a way, as not a problem, but as a really great strength. So that's why we're North Pole. Now you'll never forget. I want to talk a little bit about the broader history. So I'm going to give you a really quick summary. People can do long lectures about this. But if you're not familiar, in Oregon and across the country, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities historically were institutionalized, forcibly institutionalized, and were segregated from the greater population. And it wasn't until in the 80s where there started to become some civil rights activism around the inhumane treatment of people and movement to close down institutions. And so Oregon, the last institution, was closed in 2000, only 25 years ago. And in 2000, throughout the 80s and 90s, as institutions were closing, society, everyone was like, well, okay, if we're not institutionalizing this population, what do we do? And so now there was a problem of how do we house people, and what do people do during the day? And still often this belief of we can't possibly integrate people into society. We still need to keep people secluded and separate. And so in the early 2000s, primarily folks who were leaving institutions joined adult group homes and went to day programs or sheltered workshops. And so sheltered workshops were a space, the only option for folks to earn money. It was sub-minimum wage piecework, typically. So folks were putting nuts and bolts into packages and were getting paid by piece instead of getting paid by hour. There was a law that was written that said this was acceptable. And so sheltered workshops were the only opportunity for folks. And it was also during this time where artists, who are always the creative problem solvers, were like, there has to be a better option than this. And there's a long history actually in Europe of this using art as a way to earn income and work with this population in pursuing careers. But in the U.S., it was in the 80s, and some of the first studios that were like North Pole started in the Bay Area as a creative alternative to folks to not go to sheltered workshops, but instead go to studios and make art. And so sheltered workshops, there was finally a lawsuit in the early 2000s where someone was suing the county because they had only been offered an option of working in a sheltered workshop. And so then the laws changed and sheltered workshops were closed, and they were given a long path to close, and the last one closed in 2019, so very recently. And then the challenges again. So that now Employment First an initiative was launched, really trying to focus, give opportunities to folks to have meaningful careers. And you'll notice that we started in 2020. So that, I think that also helps explain there's a huge influx of people looking for opportunities, both for community and for earned income. And so both us starting around that time and the pandemic hitting, I think kind of helped bolster some of the growth that we have seen. There are a lot, so North Pole Studio is considered a progressive studio. That name was coined back in the 80s by Creative Growth, one of the first studios that was like this. And progressive meaning just a really innovative idea of creating community and supporting folks in pursuing their art careers and seeing it as valuable. So at around 38 progressive studios, at least last year, there may be more this year, around the country, and there actually is a nationwide convention happening in Philadelphia this week of all these studios getting together. But although North Pole started very independently, we're not actually like members, like CreativeMornings, it's not like a network, but it's just a model of a shared community, a studio space supporting this specific population of artists and pursuing their creative practices. These all look very different, they're all different sizes. Some of them have galleries, some of them have primarily are education-based versus studio practice-based, so very different across the country. If you're interested, they're really, it's a really cool network. I can share this with Caitlin if you're interested in learning more about the different studios across the country. So I'll talk a little bit more about North Pole. That gives you a little context of kind of who we are in the national context and historically. But this is that growth track that we've seen, 2020, 2021, and huge growth in 2025. That is due to that move I was talking about. And I think the big thing with anyone who's experienced rapid growth is trying to keep up with it, both from a personnel standpoint and a fundraising standpoint. So those are the big jobs of trying to fundraise to ensure that we can keep up with the growth and the people we're serving. Also income growth here. This is the from art sales and licensing and commissions. You see quite a significant amount of growth in the last 3 years. Visibility certainly helps with that. Opportunity like this, often we connect with a new partner and they want to hire our artists. And so we've seen a lot of growth in earned income for our artists as well. And this is our staff growth. all volunteer, to now in 2025, 12 staff members. I want to talk about some of the accomplishments of our artists. One of our first partners that got on board with paying our artists is TriMet. TriMet has now licensed 9 artists' work for bus wraps, specifically for TriMet Lift bus wraps. If you're familiar, this is the door-to-door transportation for people with disabilities or elders who can't drive. And so this is 3 of our buses. So if you see these in the wild, it's like a celebrity spotting. It's really exciting. There's these 3, and then Ocean she's in design stages now for her bus that will be launched in 2026. It's really exciting. And this like hits exactly on all of our goals because it is a big old paycheck for our artists, which is amazing. And they get to see their work driving around Portland. It is so cool. And also it's serving their community. Like some of our artists ride their buses to the studio, which is pretty cool. TriMet continued on. They've been our biggest partner. They commissioned Dan Tran here to do these paintings that now are in the Jan Campbell Mobile Transit Facility, and they are disability advocacy and rights drawings. They're beautiful, so I think he did 5 of those. 3 of our artists were hired to illustrate for a movie called The Divergent Gift, and it's a film that will be released in 2026 at Pam Cut. But it's a movie about autism, and it was really cool that they hired 3 of our artists to do illustrations. This is one of the illustrations. Then they animated them, and the illustrations are interwoven with interviews with autistic people across the country. Every year, we go to the Outsider Art Fair in New York City. It is the largest art fair for this population of artists. We've been going since 2023. This past year, we sold $12,000 in art, and several of our artists sold out their collections. It's a big deal. Like this Outsider Art, it's a problematic name, but is really big in New York City. It's also really big in Paris, a lot of collectors. And this has been a great way for some of our artists to develop collectors in New York as well. On Point Credit Union has commissioned one of our artists. This is one of his drawings. He does pen and ink realism. They've commissioned him to do drawings of all of the branches that they're opening in Southwest Washington. It's a great earned income opportunity. Austin is booked up with commissions for the next 2 years. Good for him, I know. Yeah. It's a good problem. Keen Footwear has commissioned our artist 2 years in a row to create artwork. Ocean was commissioned last year to create 7 new pieces that hang in their home office. They also hired her to teach a class. They did it again this year, and another artist, Dan, he taught a class Wednesday at Keen Footwear. PGE also hired one of our artists. This is one of Ava Admiral's paintings. Commissioned her to do some paintings of electric work that they also have in their offices. The Research Center, this is sneak peek. This is going to be installed in December. Have you guys been to the Research Center? Yeah. So you know how it's like the big glass walls? 3 of our artists are going to have huge vinyl wraps like this at the Research Center, and those are getting installed in December. So if you're there, you'll get to see, like, oh, I know, North Pole artists. That's a mock-up of Annie Rose's. Annie Rose Macer, one of our artists there. We got a big grant to offer 5 of our artists a printmaking residency at Maloney Printing Company. Anyone familiar with Paul Maloney? No, Paul? Yeah, he's got a beautiful printmaking studio in the Pearl District, and he has artists coming from around the world to make prints in his studio. It's a really incredible opportunity for our artists to learn. We don't have printmaking equipment at our studio, so it's kind of hard it's expensive and heavy. So we were able to send 5 of our artists, and it was a 6-month-long residency for them to learn various different printmaking techniques, and that we have an exhibit of the work that was made during that residency opening on November 6th, next Thursday, at J. Pepin Gallery. So I'm going to plug that. If y'all want to come to that opening, we're taking over a storefront right below our studio in the Pearl District, and we're going to have a holiday pop-up shop during First Thursday. So you can come see us at both of those locations next Thursday. No, not next Thursday. The Thursday after. Yeah, after Halloween. 2 of our artists had their work licensed for beer cans. Super fun. This was, again, the Research Center. If you've been there, they do this annual competition, and 2 of our artists, the rainbow people, that's Adolf Bastendorf, and then the bright, colorful flowers, that's Zena Allen. This year, the Montevilla Jazz Festival hired one of our artists, Dan Tran, to draw this beautiful saxophone man as their poster this year. They also used his artwork on their merch, t-shirts and tote bags and hats. They sold the most merch they've ever sold this year. I've got to say, hand it to Dan, yes. It was a really lovely partnership. And those are all more of our licensing opportunities, but our biggest exhibit to date is called Tell Blank Hi From Me. We have an artist who always, every day, he's like, tell him hi from me, and like have fun. And so we named the exhibit after him as this way also of kind of, this exhibit is a sample of work from every one of our artists and is touring around the Pacific Northwest for the next 2 years. So it kicked off here in Portland earlier this year. It's been in Salem. It's coming down from Salem at the Art Association there. And we'll be going to Archer Gallery in Vancouver next. It's going to make its way to Bend. So it's going to be traveling around for 2 years. And it's a way to broaden visibility for this population of artists. I think it's a really great sampling. It shows how diverse the artwork is. And it's a great way to introduce this group of artists to the Pacific Northwest. And then exhibits in general. Right now we have 10 exhibits up around the country. So that's a lot to manage, but because we have so many artists, that's how we're trying to serve them. So these are just some samplings this year. We had a group exhibit at Waterstone Gallery earlier in the year. In the middle here, this is Mark Bishop. He had an exhibit at Alberta Street Gallery. Over here, this was at Lowell Shop and Gallery earlier this year. This was Annie Rose Macer. Currently, we have, the bottom 3 are current exhibits that are up. This one here is Joni Smith. It's at PCC Paragon Gallery. I think it's coming down next week, so now is the last time. Now is the time to go. This is a solo exhibit of Iris Turvo at the Seven Seas Collective in the Lads edition. And then this is Dan Tran, and he has an exhibit up at Aftertime Collective right now. And that's an exhibit of his calendars. So lots of work going around the country. We get a lot of invitations, or we apply for a lot of invitationals to send work around the country. So it's a really interesting challenge to try to support all these different creative practices, and our exhibitions team and creative partnership team is really working hard right now to keep up with it all. So that I will end there and invite up Ocean to share about her creative practice.
Hello, everyone. My emergency med just kicked in, so I feel better talking to you all. My name is Ocean. I'm 23 years old, and I am autistic. Now, for me, being autistic means that I feel everything. My emotions are turned up to an 11. Trying out a new show for me is like having spicy food, and I can't handle spice. It also means that I have highlighted in pink when to look up at you all and when to look back down. Yeah, thank you. But what I'm here to talk to you all about today is a bit about me, North Pole Studios, and my passion, art. North Pole Studios is an art studio that takes in artists with disabilities and empowers them through art. North Pole Studios, to me, is our sanctuary. My favorite medium to work in is collaging. Ironically, I think my teenager self would be reeling if she saw I was doing collaging, because in school, collaging was always something that was instructed and always had to be so specific. Collage your future. And it made me feel very depressed and a little angry too, if I'm honest, because at that time in my life, I struggled with seeing a future. Sorry, no, you're good. I wasn't diagnosed with autism until I turned 20. I'm a part of a large demographic of autistic women who are sadly subjected to diagnosis criteria bias. I only continued to seek out that I might be autistic when my friends, who are all autistic, suggested I might be autistic. I like to call this being peer-reviewed. Thank you. From there, I was guided to North Pole Studios. North Pole Studio gave me the creative freedom to think of collaging as art, and having the freedom to collage whatever I wanted is what made me love it and appreciate it. Something I love about art is that it guides you into new and beautiful things and reveal things that we love. Now, I wanted to share my artist statement and talk a bit about a couple collage pieces that I brought with me today. My art is an echo of what I am, what I was, and what I hope to be. And I hope that with my art, I can help guide people into what they need to feel. Here is the oracle. It's back there in the middle. Here you can see that I have experimented with merging two backgrounds together. It's a nice light that mixes into dark or dark that mixes into light. It depends if you're a half glass full or glass half empty type of person. This piece made me think about my future and how I was feeling uncertain and very quiet about it at the time. The woman in the middle I interpret as being the oracle, who both sees her future and is unsure of her future. Having both a mixture of hope, fear, and wariness, just truly wondering if the glass is half full or half empty. All right. This piece is called Path. This one I've started experimenting with colored powder. When I first started using it, I would take chalk and crush it with a stick. It was very cave woman style. I've evolved since then, no worries. I use pre-crushed powder now. I enjoyed the vibrancy in the shadows, though this one in particular, I love how powerful and strong the queen feels in the middle. It was really about how I felt with my life feeling adrift and taking action to reclaim my path and do what I love. This one's called Whimsical Witches. This one's more of the powdered experimentation, has less of a serious background. It just reminds me of when I was a child and me and my sister used to play witches, pirates, and fairies, and it always spiraled out of control. One of us would be bruised, but that was what was fun. Something about this piece that I also love is that it's a good example of things missing but camouflaging them so you'll never know. You would never know if I didn't tell you that that floating woman is missing a foot. She is. But that's a good example of that even if something's missing, even if you accidentally cut off a foot, anything can be used. And now I see that little accidents and problems can turn into something grand. Right. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about my creative process. The first thing I always do, and it's the most important part in my eyes, is picking out the background. The background is truly what sets the theme for me. The rest of the art, it's just the most frustrating part, you know? I'm extremely picky with my backgrounds. It can take a long time to find the perfect background. But it's really satisfying, and finding the perfect one just feels unreal. A true roller coaster ride, as the thrill seeker I am. I source my materials mostly from books, cards, and magazines, but my absolute favorite are the old, rusting, they're dying in my hands books. I love that. Now I glue down the background, then I start searching for things I feel fit the vibe I have chosen. Typically, I will have a full day where I just sit and cut for hours until I have a huge pile to pick from. I then arrange the pile and then arrange what I want and glue it down. The last step is selecting the text of what I have. It's like putting words to the feeling you have created. I typically enjoy selecting ominous or intriguing text, something that provokes wonder or curiosity. I'll place it and see how it feels. If it isn't right, I shift it out until I find the right match. After I glue down the text, it is done, and I never touch it again. this is a small, just time-lapse video of me arranging everything I've cut out. When I was younger, my dad, he'd walk by my room and all my toys are in disarray and I'm sitting in the middle. He'd walk back a minute later and every stuffed animal's in a line staring at me. He wondered if he's raising a demon kid, but I think we all have a demon in us. But what I like to do about this is that it feels like I'm setting out everything I've cut out and seeing where I'm going, and thinking of what I'm going to create and making a map of where I will be going. It's an important process. But that's it. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions?